And welcome to Ducks Know Sports. This week, we're previewing Week 8 of the CFL season, and it's a full week this week. No buys. All the buys are done, and we're back to having 4 games a week, how it should always be. But of course, we'll start with first game this week. Hamilton Tirecats traveling to Winnipeg to take on the Blue Bombers. Should be an interesting matchup. We'll start with the Ticats. Last week's performance from Hamilton was a little pathetic. You could tell that their heads weren't in the game. Henry Burroughs, probably his worst game of the season next to his opening game against the Rough Riders. It wasn't really until Walker had an alright game and not a great game. Stala had a horrible game, missed a wide open pass in the end zone that could have really changed the fortune of that game. Really could have came away with a win if he caught that pass in the end zone. Just didn't score last. That came down. Hamilton just couldn't score last week. They settled for field goals. And like the old saying says, you don't make friends with salad, and you don't win football games by kicking field goals. That was Hamilton last week, and their defense was horrendous. Have to really tighten stuff up. It's getting a little. This is what's going to stop Hamilton this year from going to the Grey Cup. Could be their defense being so bad. John Corliss should anything fourth quarter he could have done. Really embarrassing, and they really have to tighten that up. And I hope this week there's been a lot of defensive practice this week because Hamilton Tirecats are a very good team, a Grey Cup caliber team. But if that defense doesn't get their act together, they will be going home early. But we'll see what happens this week. And I think Hamilton Tirecats will get their act together. I really think this is still one of the most talented teams in the CFL. But they're taking on a team in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers who are struggling, to say the least. And a switch at quarterback this week as Alex Brink is out. That was quick. That was 3 weeks? He's out. Replaced by Joe Elliott, third string QB. To me, I don't know. I think I would have personally gave Alex Brink a little more time. Never really got a flow with the offense. Didn't really have time. Only had a few weeks and was getting better. The move makes no sense to me because Alex Brink was getting better. He had a few good games in there and looked good. And I just go with the backup, Joe Elliott, who's had really no experience in the CFL. You're just throwing this kid to the fire. I don't know if he's ready yet. And I think, but if you're going to make this move, you better make this move because if Joe Elliott struggles, you just can't go back with Brink. If you honestly think Elliott's the better QB, you got to stick with Elliott. And just not do what they did with Alex Brink. Just throw him in there for a few weeks. Oh, it doesn't work out. Okay, let's go with the next guy. It's pathetic. It's stupid. Winnipeg has been a mess this whole year. Since the offseason, it's been a mess. And it's just proving that last year looked like a solid organization, a solid team is turning it into quite the shit show. And if this doesn't work, then I don't know. Maybe a bank on Buck Pierce coming back healthy. I don't know. But to me, I would have stuck with Alex Spring because I really like Alex Spring. I really think he can be a next great star in the CFL, but obviously the Blue Bombers don't feel the same way, and they're going with Joe Elliott. And I expect the Hamilton defense to get in Elliott's face all game long. I expect the Hamilton Tirecats to come away with a win here by a couple touchdowns, maybe a 2-touchdown performance. Yeah, by 2 touchdowns. I think the Hamilton Tirecats win this week by 2 scores. Our next game, the Montreal Alouettes traveling to Edmonton to take on the Eskimos, one of these old-fashioned Grey Cup classics. These teams always seem to be in the Grey Cup every few years. A great rivalry, say the least, in the CFL. But I'll start with the Alouettes here. The Alouettes shows before the bye that, hey, maybe they're not as old as they seem, and they put a great performance. But again, they were playing the Blue Bombers. But, Calvillo still looks hurt to me. He's had a bye, so maybe he's healthy now. But every time he throws, he looks like being in pain. And I just think, if you want to show up the Grey Cup this year, you maybe have to sit this guy down and play McPherson. And McPherson's a good QB, no doubt. McPherson's probably the best backup in the CFL, no doubt. And I like McPherson. And, hey, maybe this might be... I just think they're doing this wrong, man. I just think they're doing this wrong. I would sit Calvillo down and go with McPherson. I really think this team is just aging. And every week you see this team just aging more and more. And I honestly, this is the first vulnerable spot I've ever seen the Alouettes in because they always look to be hot and heavy, but right now they're struggling. They're struggling. They're hurt. They're old all across the board. And this week they're going to be in trouble because they're playing an Edmonton Eskimo team who made a big acquisition this week by signing Corey Boyd, who just got cut by the Argonauts on Sunday. More of that later. But this Corey Boyd, man, move, I like this move for the Edmonton Eskimos. I mean, this team is a hard time scoring and just staying on the field for their offense for most of this year. And Corey Boyd could change that, A big, tough running back that can eat up yards, eat up clock, keep him on the field, get key first downs. Very good move. Giles improves week in and week out, really proving to be a very good QB in the CFL. Their defense, what more can you say? The best defense in the league, hands down. Great defense that gets after the passer, picks balls off, takes them back for touchdowns. Great team. Edmonton Eskimos now are shaping up maybe to be a Grey Cup team. If crazy that sounds, because they got all the tools now. They got a QB that's playing well. They got now a running back, good receivers, a great defense. I mean, this team might be the best team in the West next to BC Lions, and it will be interesting because this team could go on a roll and make it to the Grey Cup. But this week, I just love Edmonton. As I've been saying the last few minutes, I love Edmonton. And this week, I think the Edmonton Eskimos come out with a win in this one. And our next game, the Toronto Argonauts at the Calgary Stampeders. Of course, I just talked about in the last game, Corey Boyd being cut by the Argonauts this week. And there's been a lot of criticism for the Argonauts for doing this move. But, something has to be said how nobody came to his offense. I mean, Corey Boyd's a great player, no doubt. But when he got cut, it wasn't like people were like Ricky Ray or anybody was coming to his offense, saying, "Oh no, well, what were you doing? Like, we need this guy." Like, everybody just said, "Well, this is a tough league sometimes, tough business sometimes," and I think that goes to show how much people really didn't like Corey Boyd in that room. And not saying he was a cancer, but I think something had to be said for the things that Rob Murphy said, former teammate of him, basically saying how his stick got old and how he was a phony. And now he wasn't so humble behind the scenes. Apparently he was a real kind of T.O.-like, kind of a drama queen behind the scenes. And, the Argonauts, apparently has been a pain in the butt for the last 3 years. And the Argonauts apparently just had enough. And good for the Toronto Argonauts, because if you don't buy into the system and you're not performing, because let's be honest, Corey Boyd's not having a great year. Sure, he's the leading rusher in the league, but that's just because of the first 2 games of the season he was red hot and has fallen off ever since. And good for Toronto Argonauts, not putting up with his crap and cutting him. And I say, good on you, Toronto. On the other side of this game, we got the Calgary Stampeders coming off a great week last week against Hamilton. John Cornish calling his offensive line, of course, the week before. And his offensive line came to play last week, and John Cornish had a great game. 170 yards, a lot of those yards in the fourth quarter, just closed out the game. John Cornish, this is how the Stampeders have to win games. With John Cornish running the football, Kevin Glenn making just enough plays to win, and this defense just playing good. This is a really good team. And I just talked about the Edmonton Eskimos. The Calgary Stampeders, I kept going back and forth, are they good or not? Because some weeks they look great. Like last week they look great, like a Grey Cup caliber team. Then other weeks they look so bad, like they don't even make the playoffs. So they're kind of like week in, week out. There's no consistency with this team. And it's really starting to alarm me. But that being said, though, if John Cornish plays that way, consistency will come. And I really believe if Cornish plays that way, this team will be a shot at the Grey Cup. When it comes to this week, Toronto Argonauts, big week after cutting Boyd. I think there'll be a bit of a rallying cry around this team, and I'm starting to really like this Toronto Argonaut team. Ricky Ray has to pick up his game a little, no doubt. This defense is playing great. Some of the receivers are picking their game up, and I truly believe some of these backs, like Derby, who I really love, will just burst out and become a star in the CFL. And that's why I'd like the Toronto Argonauts to win this week and beat the Calgary Stampeders in Cowtown. And our last game of the week, the Saskatchewan Rough Riders traveling to BC to take on the BC Lions. A couple weeks ago, after week 3, of course, Saskatchewan's lost a win. They beat BC at home, and it really looked like these two teams were the best 2 teams in the West. And since then, BC has picked their game up. No doubt, they're going back to being a championship caliber team. But Saskatchewan Roughriders kind of went the other way. It's a little mad start of the season. Looked like they could be that surprise team and maybe go to the Grey Cup. Maybe they're back to being Grey Cup contenders. And then they went back to being the worst team in the league again. I mean, Durant has looked old the last few games. They can't hold on to leads. Some of their receiving core, people are starting to get hurt now. Their defense, who looked so strong start of the year, is starting to look bad. And I think it's just because teams, maybe the first couple weeks, took them lightly. If you're the worst team in the league, teams are going to take you lightly like they were last year. Worst team in the league last year, they're going to take them lightly. I think that's just what happened. Lightly, and then when teams said, "Oh, you're pretty good. Okay, let's play." And then when teams raise their level, you have to raise the same level. And if you can't raise up the same, then you're gonna get your butts whooped. And that's exactly what's happening here. Saskatchewan Roughriders weren't as good as we thought they were at the start of the year, and we're starting to see the real Roughriders team, which is an average to all right team, and not a team that can be on the same field. Let's be honest with the BC Lions right now. Because this Saskatchewan Roughriders has to really pick up their game if they expect to beat BC, who BC right now is just rolling. I mean, the BC Lions, Lule shows week in week why he's the best QB in the league. And I just really love the BC Lions this week. I just think BC will keep rolling. And I just think Roughriders, they just don't have enough talent, enough experience, or just enough willpower to beat a team like the BC Lions. And I believe the BC Lions lay a beat down on the Roughriders and come away with a win in this one. So to recap, I like the Tiger Cats, the Eskimos, the Argonauts, and the BC Lions. Of course, my record right now is 16-6. Would have been a lot better if it wasn't for Hamilton, shitting the bed last week. Thanks, Hamilton. Thanks a lot, Burris. But hey, that was last week. It's this week, and every week is a new week, and every day is a new day. But it should be an interesting week. These format, I think we're going to see some good games this week, and of course, only a few weeks from Labor Day, which is always an interesting weekend to say the least. Well, that's it for now. But till next time, I'm Aaron Duxford saying, I'm Dux, and I know sports. Kind of.